The rural idyll of the Ardennes forest of southern Belgium is about to be shattered by screaming 500 horsepower engines. Spa's famous racetrack is the scene of the dress rehearsal for the world's biggest race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. A 3-day battle between the world's fastest sports cars. The top teams are here to show that only they have the speed and reliability to be crowned champions at the big one in June. But a bunch of British upstarts are out to spoil their party.
Once the light goes green, for us it'll be flat out.
From this small workshop in Oxfordshire, England, Creation Autosport are taking on the Goliaths of the sports car racing world. They've bought a fast but notoriously unreliable DBA sports prototype, and they're trying to turn it into a world beater. But it's not been easy. 2 weeks ago, they had a disastrous 24-hour test at the Paul Ricard circuit in France. The team struggled for the entire test with suspension problems. Tyres designed to last for 100 laps were wearing out in just 10. With the first race of the season just days away, millionaire team owner Mike Jankowski's patience and his budget are reaching their limits.
We have not won a race yet. So yeah, I get worried. Because if you've got an uncompetitive car, you may as well bin it.
Already this year, Mike has forked out to meet the huge costs of a new tyre supplier, a new engine, and dozens of smaller component changes aimed at improving reliability. Now the pressure is really on his team manager, Ian Bickerton, to deliver the team's first win.
We are very late at the moment. The job list I've got in my pocket is about 40 items. The guys on the car have got a 78-point job list to do with the car.
So with 2 days to go until Spa, has Bix made enough improvements to the car to turn Creation into a world-class team?
There's been a lot of changes, a lot of investment, and until the car is on the track, until it actually goes round, until it shows what it can do, you never know.
7 mechanics, 3 engineers, 2 drivers and 1 car hit the road for Spa. Creation's tyreman and part-time truckie Steve King is going to have his work cut out this weekend. While Spa may boast one of the longest racetracks in the world, it also has one of the smallest paddocks. The 47 teams taking part are squashed in here like sardines. And with Spa's notoriously changeable weather, Steve and his team of tyremen are going to be changing, checking and marking up tyres non-stop for the next 3 days. It's no better in the garages. There's barely room for the mechanics to move around the car, let alone make major changes or repairs.
The facilities sometimes leave a lot to be desired, but we're very cramped here, you know. That we're not in the Formula 1 pits, we're in the sports car pits, the 24-hour pits. You're perched on the side of a hill. It is going to rain, and you know that's not very nice here.
It's quite high tension right now. To tell you the truth, Bix is impossible right now. Totally impossible. He's so stressed out, I think that you could prick him and he'd sort of explode.
Creation Autosport are at Spa in Belgium for a 3-day race weekend. The teams have a day and a half of practice, followed by a timed qualifying session on Saturday afternoon, which determines starting positions for the race on Sunday. If you're not fast enough in qualifying, you have little chance to win the race. Creation really need to make the most of their practice time to make sure Bix has fixed the problems with the car and to tune its performance to the demands of this track.
We hope it's resolved. If it's resolved, then the car will be fabulous. The drivers will love it, and we'll go out there and do well. If not, then there'll be a real fight.
If they get it right in practice, qualifying will be Bix's big chance to prove to Mike that Creation can compete with the big budget top teams this year. And top of that list is Team Orica. France's biggest motorsport company. They're running an Audi R8. This four-time Le Mans winning car cost hundreds of millions to develop. It's prime German engineering perfection. It's the Goliath to creation's David. Everyone at Orica has supreme confidence that they have the car to beat.
As far as cornering goes, the car delivers the goods in every way. It has amazing suspension and aerodynamics. And so in Eau Rouge Blanchimont, the double gauche, I believe it's the best car.
Creation are also up against another big-budget French team, Pescarolo Sport. Team boss Henri Pescarolo and his chief engineer Claude Jalopin have gambled their sizable budget this year on a completely redesigned car, which takes advantage of new regulations. Here at Spa, they'll find out if their trade-off for more power, in return for slightly less grip from downforce, will give them the edge over the Audi and smaller teams like Creation.
We've come here to win. So far, our car is working quite well. At Paul Ricard, we had fast times relative to the competition, so we hope that we'll be in the running here and take victory.
Everyone will be watching each other closely. From the moment the track opens for practice, the pressure will be on to be the fastest and stay the fastest.
Yeah, I'm starting to pumped up, getting excited.
Creation driver Nick Minassian gets his edge from the adrenaline rush, while teammate Jamie Campbell-Walter gets his from looking good.
New helmet design, very proud of it. My feet are killing me because I've got new boots on. Running in, we should put it on the back of the car, running in.
Team manager Bix is in no joking mood. He knows the success he so desperately needs this weekend is now in the hands of his drivers, his mechanics, and his chief engineer, Ian Smith.
Tense times directly before the first practice, so just everybody's trying to be sure they've crossed the T's and dotted all the I's. Okay, we're going to push him out onto the rig.
It's 12:30. The track is open, but Creation are still in their garage.
Jamie's gloves. In his helmet, he's got my gloves.
Jamie, what are you doing with my gloves? Huh?
Valuable practice time lost already. Creations is one of the last cars out. The team seems almost reluctant to get started, perhaps worried that their hurriedly rebuilt car will fall apart. But there's serious work to be done on their setup. A racing car is an infinitely adjustable precision machine. And choosing the right settings for hundreds of different components and electronic controls is one of the most important skills of a successful team. Smithy must set up Creation's car to the exact requirements of Spa's 12 corners, 12 straights, steep gradients, and tight hairpins. To get a fast lap time, his drivers will need to be able to go flat out through the fastest corners, like Blanchimont and Eau Rouge, but may have to live with some compromise through slower parts of the track.
2 years ago they resurfaced the track through the area around the bus stop chicane and changed it slightly, and that portion of the track's got very little grip at all. Knowing that that corner's going to be a problem, you have to ignore that corner, set up the car for the rest of the track and settle for the fact that the car's not going to be very good for that corner.
The team waits anxiously in the pits to check over the car.
Alright guys, first stop, we're just going to stop him outside the pit, have the engine cover off and have a good look around the engine installation, okay?
The temperature is, I get lots and lots of...
Feedback from the drivers is an important part of the engineering process, especially today for Bix, who's invested so much time and so much of Mike's money trying to improve the car.
You tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Engine feel okay? I know you tell me the truth.
Engine is beautiful.
Okay, no vibration?
It's never been bad, the engine.
I know.
It's always been perfect.
It's understeer. Car feels good, just a lot of understeer. Get rid of that.
So, it's a green light for Smithy to concentrate solely on setup. With limited practice sessions, it's a race against time to experiment with combinations of suspension and aerodynamic settings, tyres, engine mapping and gear ratios. There are thousands of adjustments they can make to try and shave off a few vital tenths of seconds per lap. And despite their slow starts, Creation are ahead in the game. Pescarolo are struggling. Their drivers are finding their car hard to control in the fast corners.
The Eau Rouge is one of the hardest corners in the world. When the car is well balanced, normally we'd be able to take it flat out. It's really not clear why we can't.
At the end of Nick Minassian's stint, the Creation upstarts are still topping the timesheets. Just.
Okay, mate, we've gone quickest at the moment by 3 tenths. You're 3 tenths quicker than anyone else at the moment.
But there's still plenty of time for everyone to get a lot faster. So the pressure's now on Smithy and number 2 driver Jamie Campbell-Walter to keep Creation on top.
Sitting behind you.
Everyone happy? Okay, Jamie, off you go, mate.
From his very first lap, Jamie struggles to keep up Nick's pace. But it's not clear whether Jamie's slow or if Smithy's latest setup changes have failed to improve the car. Creation's rivals start pulling ahead. The Pescarolo drivers are now full throttle through Eau Rouge. They move to the top of the lap times. Now, Creation looks slow. The only consolation for Creation is that Orica have also had a bad day. The team watch in silence as their lap times don't improve. Their Audi is even slower than Creation's car, and for the first time in 5 years, this car looks beatable. Creation end the session only 6th fastest. But who's to blame?
Got a bit of understeer. Blocking the rear brakes a little bit.
Okay, the car needs a bit of sorting out to improve its performance, but I'm sure we can do that and hopefully it'll be better.
Smithy is still hoping that the data will show that there isn't a problem with the car. Bix will have to decide whether he needs to get tough with his engineer or with his drivers, or both. Because Creation aren't looking like the world-class team that Mike thinks he's paid for.
But we're not exactly where we want to be right now. Frustrating.
As daylight fades, the Spa weather has the final say. The gathering clouds signal all change for qualifying tomorrow. Saturday morning, and the rain that Spa is so famous for has arrived.
Well, as you can see, the weather is glorious today. Spa is comprehensively unpredictable. You can have one part of the circuit where it's, raining, another part of the circuit where it's, totally dry.
The rain changes everything. After all their hard work in the sunshine yesterday, the teams and their drivers will need different tyres, different driving techniques and different setup to master Spa in the wet. Creation have their work cut out. Since they switched to Michelins over the winter, this is their very first opportunity to use their new wet weather tyres.
We haven't put a Michelin wet on the car yet, so we've no idea how the car is with them.
Tyres use up a big chunk of Creation's limited budget. It costs them €1,800 for every set of 4 tyres. A cost which Michelin justify by spending millions developing tyres tailor-made for all conditions. Slick tyres for dry conditions, wet tyres for the rain, and intermediates for those tricky in-between times. And for each type of tyre, there's also a choice of different rubber compounds.
We've got a soft wet, hard wet, and an intermediate. Well, looking at it, the intermediate's not going to go on the car. From what Michelin has said, the hard wet probably is too hard. It's really for a drying track. So we should go out on the soft wet, get a few laps on that and see how you both feel. Maybe it will dry out towards the end and we can try the harder wet.
Smithy will have to spend most of the final practice session on this unscheduled tyre test. But yesterday's problems are still unresolved. Overnight, Bix has been comparing Jamie's practice laps with last year's data.
Well, the blue is last year and the red is this year. And the reason why they're going flat everywhere is because the car isn't very quick.
But Smithy still thinks it's the driver that's making his car look slow.
It's no wonder you're flat through Blanchimont now.
Well, we were last year.
Yeah, but you said last year it was a bit hairy. This year you said it's easy. I'm not surprised you're going 10 kilometres an hour slower.
Right.
Looking through another lap, the entry to the corner compared to last year is a lot worse.
Is it?
Yeah, like a lot.
And it's his job to make the car good.
Pressure.
Whoever's to blame, both have something to prove today. But Jamie will have to wait until after the tyre test. For now, number one driver Nick Minassian will be taking the wheel. Minutes before the session begins, Nick is strapped in, ready to go. Creation won't be wasting any track time today. At first, Nick struggles with the conditions and an unfamiliar tyre. Around him, Spa begins to take its toll. But Nick keeps it on track, and he's soon loving the new tyre. He's the fastest on the circuit. It seems, after all, that the car's working just fine, and Smithy's setup skills have been vindicated.
Are we driver changing?
No, Nick. I want you to try this second set of wets, okay? Stay in the car.
Actually, those tires are really nice. I like them. They're good. That's a really nice change.
Nick stays at the wheel to give the team a back-to-back comparison with a harder compound tyre.
What do you say?
With Smithy off the hook, Jamie's back in the frame. The good news for Creation is that the more durable hard tyre is just as fast as the soft.
Okay, Nick.
And the good news for Jamie is that he will finally get a chance to get back on the team.
Driver change?
Yes, Nick, please. If you could loosen your belts and hop out the car, please.
Nick went out, set a good time. He was the quickest today in the wet. It's quite good.
Setup-wise, the car is running really good.
If there wasn't enough pressure already, Jamie now has just 15 minutes to rescue his reputation.
All right, Jamie, off you go.
In the worst weather yet. It's as bad as it could get without the track being closed.
It's like driving down the motorway at 90 miles an hour in the pouring rain with a car 20 metres in front of you without your wipers on.
It's a challenge just to stay on the track. But Jamie has a point to make. Everyone's lap time slowed down, but Jamie is as fast as anyone. And he's rubbing it in. He's hounding the slower Audi through the chicanes. He's reveling in the mayhem.
Okay, hop out.
He comes back happy, but soaked to the skin. But has he done enough to satisfy the boss?
He wishes he had a roof. You want a wetsuit? Your bum's all wet, Jamie.
I think it looks big.
Creation end the session with Nick's fastest laps topping the times. And Bix even allows himself some praise for Jamie.
It was a lot wetter when Jamie was out, so yeah, Nick did a 24 something, Jamie did a 28. Times were comparable with the Audi, so it's pretty good.
Against all expectations, Creation have proved themselves the team to beat in the wet. They're ready to challenge the big boys against the clock. In Saturday afternoon qualifying, the teams compete to set the single fastest lap. Each car's best time will determine its position on the starting grid for tomorrow's race.
Qualifying this afternoon is only 20 minutes, so we'll only have one driver qualifying the car. That'll be Nick.
For qualifying, you push like mad.
But in a 6-hour endurance race, grid position is more important for morale than race position.
For the team, it's a nice feeling, you know you are the fastest.
Can you hear me, Nick? What's your water temperature, mate?
In qualifying, there's no limit on the number of laps. But the prototypes, like Creations, get the track to themselves for just 20 minutes before the slightly slower GT cars join the fray.
Okay, mate, when you're ready, you can go. You might as well wait to the pit lane exit. You'll be one of the first cars out.
avoiding traffic can be as important as having a fast car. Pescarolo get an edge over their rivals by being the first in the queue for the green flag. The tactic appears to pay off as Emmanuel Collard puts in a couple of very fast laps right at the start. Nick's looking good.
What was up on this screen before, Ian?
But there's total confusion on the pit wall as the timing system appears not to be working.
I got it at 25.6.
It'll all be right in race control, it's just the telly's not keeping up by the looks of it.
Creation can only monitor their own man, so Mike uses a bit of psychological strategy with Nick. He still doesn't know how competitive their times really are, but he knows that if Nick thinks he's in second place, he'll keep pushing harder for pole position.
Because Nick is the sort of driver who says, P2, oh, I've got to push. And that's what he would do.
P2 minus 0.3.
As the session progresses, the track is drying, and Nick's times get faster, closing in on Collard's fast lap in the Pescarolo right at the start of the session. Orica are pushing hard too, but they're over a second behind and will only manage fourth fastest.
You won't get another lap. You'll get the flag on this lap.
Okay, Nick, you need this lap. It's this lap.
When the correct times finally appear, Mike's tactic hasn't quite paid off.
Okay, Nick, you finished P2. You're 200ths behind Bouillon.
200ths of a second difference. That's not bad.
Emmanuel Collard's clear lap at the start of the session takes pole position for Pescarolo. After 2 days of hard setup work in every possible type of weather condition, Creation miss out by just 200ths of a second. Two different prototypes, designed to two different regulations, separated by less than a blink of an eye.
So I'm a little disappointed and I didn't push just this little extra bit somewhere to gain this 0.200 of a second.
After qualifying, the final hurdle for the top three cars is scrutineering, the racing car's equivalent of an athlete's drugs test.
After you qualify the car, goes through a technical inspection process just to make sure we're not cheating.
The most important test is a stall test, when the scrutineers cover the engine's air intake restrictor, which is used to limit engine power. The engine must stall.
Well, we're all smiley now, because we're still heroes. We passed the stall test, so we're all right.
Nick may be disappointed to miss out on pole, but for the bosses, Creation has triumphantly pulled together as a world-class team.
The big thing now is that we're in a good position for the race on the front row. We just need to stay in touch, really.
Pescarolo may feel confident for tomorrow's race, but Creation will be out to give them a run for their money.
6 o'clock, on top of the podium. If Mike is hearing me saying all things like that, say, oh, shut up,
18 hours to go until the start of the race, and Creation are praying for rain. Pescarolo would prefer a hot, dry track to make the most of their superior power, while Orica will have to rely on reliability and strategy. It's race day at Spa in southern Belgium. Creation Autosport's 11-man team is hard at work in their garage, preparing their 500 horsepower DBA prototype for this important milestone on the road to Le Mans in just 2 months' time. Mechanic Nigel Bowman is preparing the spare bodywork.
Just putting in some lights into the spare wings. They do get damaged quite easily in an accident.
Monitoring live data from the car is engineer Tina Gade's role.
What we're looking at basically on the telemetry is engine-related data, so things like temperatures and pressures on the car. What we're really looking out for more than anything else on the data is potential problems. The car's about to overheat, the temperature's getting a little bit high. We know we might have a problem.
And tyreman Steve King is marking up his rubber.
Every set's got a number, making a note of what we've got and what we sent back, and I'm trying to get my head around it.
After weeks of preparation and testing, today there's no room for error, for the team or for the drivers. In qualifying yesterday, Creation and their drivers may have proved themselves up to the challenge of Spa. But that was just a 20-minute session. Today they must deliver both speed and reliability non-stop for 6 hours. But for the team with a growing reputation for being as unreliable as they are fast, race day is a day that Mike and Bix are starting to dread.
We started 6 races last year, 3 starting from pole. We finished only 2.
If they can finish this race, they have a good chance to achieve their first ever win. But Spa is not about to do Creation any favours. It rained earlier, but with half an hour to go until the start, the track is now slowly drying out. Creation engineer Ian Smith now faces a game of Russian roulette.
The pit lane, the pit lane. Right through the pit lane.
He has to predict the weather and then make the right tyre choice for the start of the race.
And there's every possibility it's going to rain in the race.
Smithy decides to gamble on intermediate tyres, which are lightly grooved for maximum grip on a drying track.
Intermediates are going on the car now.
If the rain holds off, these could give Creation a race-winning edge. But it's risky, because Creation have never used these tyres before. Nick has just 3 laps to try out the intermediates before he must take up his position on the starting grid.
It's pretty good, because the track has already dry from my first lap out. There's some places where it's pretty good actually.
Nick likes the tyres.
Are you going to happy to leave these on, yeah?
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't rain.
Oh well, the wets are here, they're ready to go on if we need to put them on at the last second.
5 minutes, all right? If you need to go for a pit, go now. Don't stop talking to anyone, though, will you?
Mike personally funds most of the £200,000 it costs per race to run this team. And he's getting impatient for results.
I'm very nervous. Naturally, started the race, conditions are unpredictable. At this point, your heart's beating like 1,000,000 times a minute.
He's quite happy with it.
His team manager, Ian Bickerton, has been focusing on a plan to make sure Creation at least finish this race.
I want to lead the last lap, and that's it. We don't need to lead the first one.
Bix has decreed a cautious strategy. His drivers are under strict orders to drive carefully to conserve the car and avoid collisions at all costs.
We can't trade paint with these cars, especially the Audi and the Pescarolo behind me. It's a strong car, it's built like a tank. We got to stay out of trouble.
While Bix challenges to keep his fast but fragile car in the race, rival team Orica will need a very different strategy to get a good result. Their 950-kilogram Audi R8 has proved almost indestructible. And Orica won't mind their drivers throwing it about a bit, because they'll need to drive flat out from start to finish to make up for being over a second a lap slower than the top cars, thanks to restrictions imposed by this year's technical regulations.
This race is the big dress rehearsal before the 24 hours of Le Mans. But there's a little frustration because the technical regulations have greatly penalized our car, the Audi.
Team Pescarolo's gamble this year to redesign their car to take advantage of the new technical regulations has paid off with pole position. Their drivers may struggle for grip in the fast corners in the wet, but in terms of straight-line speed, this car is untouchable.
Everything's going well. So far so good, with the best time in each session, best time in warm-up, best time for pole, but the race is starting only now. Let's keep that in mind.
Pescarolo's strategy will be to push from the start and try to build a lead. So if they do get any problems, they'll have time in hand to sort them out.
Everybody off the grid, please. Can you now start making your way from the grid back through the pit lane?
The race will start at exactly noon. The winner will be the team which has completed the most laps by exactly 6 p.m. For the 47 drivers on the grid, many of whom will drive for over 3 hours before handing over to teammates, there's just a few moments of calm before the loneliness of the long-distance endurance racer begins. The cars pull away for a parade lap in starting formation. Nick weaves his car behind the safety car to keep some temperature in his new tyres, ready for the rolling start. It's race on. On the first lap, Nick drops to 4th place. He's keeping out of trouble, but it's not quite going to Bick's plan. Pescarolo and Orica made last-minute decisions to run on full wet tyres, and now they're building a big lead. Smithy's gamble on intermediates hasn't paid off, and Creation must wait for the track conditions to swing in their favour.
Although Pescarolo and the Audi have pulled out a 40-second gap on us, it's now just they're starting to slow down, which means their wets are probably going off, and our inters are, Nick's starting to go a bit quicker, which means the inters are probably just coming into their own.
It takes just 40 minutes for the 90-litre fuel tanks of these 650 horsepower machines to run dry, and the first pit stops begin. The high-powered Pescarolo is a fuel guzzler and comes in first, and changes from wet to intermediate tyres. Creation saved 15 seconds by staying on the same tyres. They're still further behind than they'd hoped, but Bix is sticking to his guns. He has Nick maintain a cautious pace, avoiding the big bumps and curbs that, after 6 hours of racing, could badly damage the car and put it out of yet another race. Orica are last to stop. Their strategy is to maximise their Audi R8's superior fuel efficiency and save time by doing fewer pit stops during the race. But there's a setback. Because of Orica's tyre choice, Ortelli has to be called in early. On the drying track, his wet tyres are now off the pace. The team pulls out a set of cut slicks, a homemade compromise between smooth slicks and grooved intermediates. But by the time Ortelli enters the pits, he decides it's now dry enough to gamble on a set of slick tyres. If it pays off, these tyres will help him close the gap to Pescarolo. With just over an hour gone, all three top teams are now on different strategies. But Creation may have a problem. Their telemetry is showing an electrical problem. The battery should maintain 14.5 volts, but it's falling dangerously close to a cut-off point at which there won't be enough power to operate the gearbox.
When he gets down to 10, he won't change gear.
Well, no, it's when he gets down to 11, we bring him back in again.
Creation now have to work out exactly what's wrong and how to fix it. It could be the wiring, it could be the battery, or it could be the alternator, the component which recharges the battery when the engine is running. Either way, Creation are going to fall behind. But two spectacular crashes work to their favour. A wayward Ferrari takes out a Zytek prototype. And a second crash brings out an army of safety marshals. The remaining cars must form a slow train behind a safety car, lapping at over 5 minutes a lap. Now Creation can pit, diagnose and fix the problem, and only lose a few laps.
Here you go, mate, here you go, right. Switch everything off, switch everything off.
Okay,
guys, you can read bolts, yeah? In a minute, I'm going to get you to start the engine, and I want you to rev the nuts off it. It needs to rev to about 7,000 RPM. Okay, let's just do that.
Smith is hoping it's the battery, which would be a quick fix.
7.7.
A broken alternator wouldn't. That would take Creation's three mechanics at least 10 minutes to change.
Okay, change the alternator. Switch the engine off. Switch the engine off, change the alternator, quick as you can, guys.
It's real gutting because at the time, we were comfortably positioned for where we needed to be.
To save time, while the mechanics replace the alternator, Smithy also wants to change the tyres.
As long as there's only 4 people on the car, we can do what we want.
But they'll incur a penalty if more than 4 team members touch the car.
Oi! You're not allowed over that line.
I know.
You're not allowed over that line, all right?
After all their hard work to improve reliability, Creation's setback is pure bad luck. The the chance failure of a brand new component.
Okay,
Turn the engine off.
get the back on, let's go. You've just had a new alternator, all right?
At least, thanks to the safety car, they've only lost 3 laps on the leaders.
Mate, off you go, off you go.
It's a gap they can at least try to make up. But now there's no holding back. Bick's cautious car-preserving strategy goes out of the window. It's time to play catch-up, but Creation have been here before.
You're now lying P13, you're 3 laps down. You know, I mean, think back to last year, we went from first to last on the first lap and we still finished on the podium, so if we do a good solid job, keep your head down, we'll be all right.
Nick needs no encouragement to show just how fast he can go. He drives on the edge lap after lap and starts clawing back time on the leaders. But it won't be enough. Creation also need their rivals to have their fair share of misfortune. And Pescarolo are the first to oblige. Eric Comas stalls the engine leaving the pits, losing valuable time. When he finally arrives at the end of the pit lane, he's held up at a red light. The safety car is back out for another crash, and Comas must wait over a minute for the train of cars to pass. Despite slower lap times, Orica are now ahead. The fastest man on the track is Nick Minassian, and he's already back up to 9th.
Nick's got about another 7 laps in his stint, then he's going to have to get out of the car. He's done nearly 3 hours now. So we've gone back from zeros to heroes again.
Nick's doing well, but the pressure's on the whole team to perform. With the drivers changing at the next stop, the teamwork must be flawless. And the bosses must keep working on strategy. A Porsche loses control. And it's time for another safety car. And Mike has an idea. He's spotted a loophole in the safety car regulations.
The plan is when a safety car comes in, Nick is right behind it. When it actually turns on its green lights, that means that the race will go green that lap when he crosses the line. At that point, Nick will pit, so the other cars will be held back. And we'll just do our driver change and our pit stop, and hopefully we may gain 15 to 20 seconds. Fingers crossed.
At the end of his stint, Nick's pulled Creation back to 6th. But that's not good enough for Nick Minassian.
It's a shame we had this problem with the alternator, but happened, eh?
Mike's cleverly timed stop has saved more precious seconds. Now it's up to Creation's number 2 driver, Jamie Campbell-Walter, to keep up the charge. Jamie has proved himself fearless and fast in the wet, and Bix gives him free rein to push the car hard and keep pressure on the leaders. Pescarolo are back in front of Orica, but driver Eric Comas is struggling with the slick tyres as he picks his way through slower traffic. But as Orica's Stefan Ortelli tries to take advantage of the Audi's better handling on the damp track, he loses control. It's a lot of time lost, and a wake-up call for the team bosses who may have left Ortelli in the car for too long. After a wait of nearly 4 hours, Jean-Marc Gounon will now play his part. Ortelli comes in exhausted, using the last of his strength to harness his teammate into the car. It's a disappointing end to a heroic stint. But despite the shunt, he's kept Orica in contention.
Mentally, it's a very difficult condition. We are in Belgium, we are in Spa, and it's not surprising me, but it's so bloody difficult to overtake. The visibility is very bad as well, so we had many problems.
In the Pescarolo car, Comas is now desperate to change his slick tyres. But it's his race engineer Claude Jalopin's decision. Claude doesn't want to risk losing time by pitting early. Meanwhile, Jamie is loving his slick tyres. Despite rapidly thickening fog, he pulls back a lap on the leaders, and Creation have made a remarkable recovery to 4th place. Comas finally pits and the tyres are changed to intermediates. But a twist of fate realises Claude's worst fears. By sheer bad luck, the fog has brought the safety car back out at the worst possible moment. Pescarolo are stopped at the end of the pit lane for a second time. They lose another lap, and Gounon moves Orica back ahead. Jamie now has the Pescarolo in his sights, but he's beginning to struggle with the car.
The front left is bouncing massively and it keeps locking up. I'll let you know more, but at a glance I say it looks alright. I want pressure's taken off of these tyres before they go away as soon as possible, please. We need to have a look at this front left.
Before Smithy has a chance to assess the situation, Jamie's back on the radio.
The car is massively pulling to the left. It's trying to pull to the left.
It's an engineering mystery that the team needs to solve fast. With less than an hour to go to the end of the race at Spa, Jamie Campbell-Walter is having a problem with the Creation car.
Don't expect a lap record or anything.
Mystery still unsolved, the mechanics prepare for every possible scenario.
Well, what I'm thinking is if we can just stroke it right to the end.
That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to stroke it. We're 2 laps in front of the next one, aren't we?
Now facing the possibility of not finishing yet another race, Bix reinstates his original plan: drive slowly.
We've got to work out what can he drop his lap time to keep the position.
We say he's got to do an hour.
Yeah, and it's raining.
If Jamie can nurse the car home, Creation can keep 4th place, or perhaps better. Disaster has struck for Orica.
Oh, me. Car 4 Gounon has gone off. So, I don't know what that's all about, but so just be really careful. There's no need to load the car up anyway. His splitter's hanging off. The front of the car looks pretty. Unless they get the car out pretty quick, you could bring it home in the end. You're on the podium.
Gounon had asked to come in and change his tyres, but the Orica bosses didn't want to lose time. Now their chance to fight for the win in the closing stages has blown up in a cloud of smoke and carbon fibre. The mechanics race to rebuild the car, but there's just too much damage to get back into the race.
They're now changing the left-hand front corner, which puts us probably P3.
Orica's reliability and fuel strategy had kept them in contention, but it just takes one mistake. This is a racing driver's worst nightmare.
We were completely dry till the end of the race on a fuel consumption. We do 52 minutes.
Yeah.
So we're just about there, aren't we?
With Creation up to 3rd and Pescarolo too far ahead, Jamie's mission is now to simply nurse the car home to a position on the podium.
You can slow right down.
Just slow down. You're 10 seconds a lap quicker than anyone else on the track, all right? So slow down.
But one thing racing drivers aren't very good at is driving slowly. And 12 laps later, it's a shattering blow, a dramatic end to a remarkable recovery. A tough pill to swallow after a long, hard weekend of total dedication from the whole team.
We thought we'd get it the last 40 minutes home, but something's broken at the rear end. He's lost all the drive, and that's the end of that. There goes our 3rd place here today.
Battling to the end, Smithy and Jamie go through the formality of standard checks and tests.
Take the back off and have a look. By all means, have a look up the hole at the back, but I'll be very surprised if there's much you can do. I don't think we split the spare drive shaft in your boot.
40 minutes to go, we're P3. It's looking good. Car's handling really well. I think we were fastest on the track by miles, and it's just a disappointment. You do all that effort, all the testing and everything, and you get to 40 minutes to go in a 6-hour race and you think, oh no.
I can't take it anymore.
It's just gutting, you know, but this is motor racing and it's cruel.
After a race full of problems for all the top teams, there's an unexpected winner. Team Zytek score a classic endurance racing victory thanks to a run that has been 100% problem-free. In the closing laps, Pescarolo pushed hard for victory, but after so many problems, they must settle for second.
We're really disappointed because we were in the running for first place. There was a safety car which came out at a bad moment, which meant we lost a lap in the pit. That changed the ending of the race because we were really in the running for first place with the Audi and the Zytek. We finished second, we didn't have any reliability problems, so it was just bad luck, and it's still very positive as well.
With Orica crashing out, it's the first time that the Audi R8 has been beaten at this event. Hope for all their rivals for Le Mans in June. But Creation are back to square one. They've always been fast, but it seems they just can't finish races.
The reality is that the car didn't finish, and it had a problem. And in this sort of environment, you just can't have a problem.
If they can't last 6 hours in Spa, how on earth will they race non-stop for 24 hours at Le Mans in June? There are just 62 days to go on the road to Le Mans, and Creation need a miracle.
As James Brown famously sang, it's Le Mans' world, and the Creation crew are proving him right. Next on Turbo, our formula of speed day continues.